Okay, welcome back to the Are You Strong show. I have another awesome guest on today. What do you hear this young woman's background? Freehold, New Jersey, young girl who's Rutgers athlete. We're going to get into her career there as a gymnast. All academic, Big Ten. She graduated. She's in the med device sales career now, kicking butt there, and she's boxing, which is really cool. Can't wait to dive into that. So, welcome to the show, Jenna Crisalli.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna Crisalli. I graduated in Rutgers 2018. I did gymnastics there from 2014 to 2018. I then, following college, worked at a healthcare communication company. I loved learning about healthcare. I didn't actually study anything um, in healthcare or medical. I studied communication and I got out and was obsessed with healthcare. I wanted more of a direct impact on the patient. I thought I was going to be a pharma rep, but I ended up in med device. So I do work in the operating room now selling products that are used for surgery.
Cool. So you took your athletic drive into the sales world, right? And
Correct.
then, right, it's your competitive drive into the sales world. And it's not just selling basic fundamental stuff, like you're selling stuff in the operating room.
Yeah, so we directly sell to surgeons. I'm actually in the advanced surgical division. So I work at ConMed. I'm in the advanced surgical division. I sell lap and robotic equipment. Most of my equipment is used in surgery, but some has a clinical benefit on the patient. Others of it is cost effective or might be easier for the nurses to use for workflow. So I do have a variety in my bag that I do sell, which is pretty cool. I get to work with all different types of surgeons, all different specialties: GYN, general, urology, plastics, ortho. So I do get a variety of different surgeries that I am a part of, which is pretty cool.
Cool. So we're going to bounce around. I'm going to ask you all kinds of questions, about your college life, post-college life. But I like to ask this to all the athletes I've had on the show. You're a gymnast at Rutgers. That's
Yeah.
just not just a physically demanding sport, but it's a mentally demanding sport, right? And my question to everybody I always like to start out with is, when did you know that, hey, I am pretty good. I have the ability, the skill sets, the mindset to be on a gymnastics team at the Big Ten level? When did you realize it? Was that like 8 years old, 10 years old? Like, when did you know?
I think most gymnasts could say that if you are competitive in the sport, you start at an extremely young age. I feel like from 6 years old on, gymnastics was all that I knew. And it spirals extremely quick once they see that you're talented and or that's something that you want to do. You go from pre-team to team, and then from then on, you're practicing 3 to 4, 5 hours a day. And I feel like that was pretty much my life from childhood all the way to college. So I feel like it's kind of a path that you take. I was on the TOPS national team when I was younger. I did get to train at Bella Crowley's camps, which was pretty cool. And that was from ages like 8 to 12.
Yeah.
They do want you to homeschool, which I never actually had the opportunity to do. I did stay in school all of my years, but that does kind of guide you to more of an elite Olympic route. Um, I decided that I wanted to go to college and do this, through the journey, I guess, probably as you're approaching high school, like you start being recruited at an extremely young age. So I kind of followed that path, and that's how I knew that I wanted to do gymnastics in college. I wasn't so sure that I wanted to go D1. I was looking at all schools, more like from an educational standpoint, but I'm happy that I ended up where I did. And I'm not sure if you know, but I did walk on to Rutgers. The story is I went on an official visit to UNH at New Hampshire. It was like a really snowy weekend. My parents were there with me. The last day that I was there, I got to watch UNH compete against Rutgers. They offered me to verbally commit on a full scholarship. And as we were leaving, then my parents asked me, "So what did you think?" And I was like, well, I think I want to go to Rutgers. I just like the way that they carried themselves. I
Yeah.
felt like it was a school that I would fit into better. And as an athlete, you do get that vibe. Where can I belong? So although I didn't receive a full scholarship at Rutgers initially. I did earn my scholarship the end of my sophomore year, going into my junior year. I did earn a full scholarship. So I know one of the questions that we discussed prior was, what was your best moment in college? And that was probably one of the best moments that I've ever had. I mean, like almost till this day, like in my life, I worked my whole life for that moment. And it was really cool that I was able to bet on myself to do so.
So you beat me to it. You beat me to the question. So when you were a kid, though, I want to talk about this for a second. Because you said they realized you were good, so they kind of pushed you along. Did you want to go those 3, 4 hours a day because you were so intense and you loved it, or you did it because somebody saw the ability in you and pulled you along the way?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, as a kid, I definitely did all different kinds of sports. And it's the coolest thing ever when you can do what others can't. And gymnastics is a sport where who doesn't want to be the cool kid on the playground doing flips? And if you're capable of doing so, why not ride the wave? So I felt like gymnastics was extremely attractive to me. I loved it. And, it was just all that I knew. From a young age, you're extremely fixated on what's around you. And when you're in an environment for that amount of time at so young, it's like the discipline that goes into it. Like I was so
Mhm.
excited to put on my leotard every day. And, I would drive to practice and there was kids playing outside and it was just nothing that I was really ever a part of, but I wouldn't regret it. And I don't think then I cared either because I knew I was going to go flip around and do things that others couldn't. And again, it made those moments on the playground really worth it.
Yeah. So I've spoken to some other gymnasts, and here's one thing I just don't understand is how the heck can you like flip backwards on the balance beam knowing that you missed by those, it's a 4 inches wide, you missed that, you're in big trouble. Like, how do you get the courage to do that?
Yeah, I feel like that's actually the best part of gymnastics is overcoming fears like that. A lot of times we are scared. I think at a younger age less than you are as you grow older and you realize that you could get really hurt. But it's a lot of trust in your coach, a lot of trust in yourself, and it does build a lot of character in overcoming those fears. And that's kind of the best part. When you're afraid to do something and then you do it, or you're missing it time and time again, and you make a small correction that fixes it. That's what's addictive about the sport. It's the best part. So those wins I definitely add up, and again, it builds a lot of character.
Oh my God, yeah. So which event did you like the most, and which event did you like the least?
Well, I competed floor my years in college, floor and beam interchangeably. I actually liked bars most. I did have wrist surgery, but uh, bars is an event that you would think you need to be extremely strong to do. But you don't. You actually need to technically be correct. And the smallest change in technique matters. And I'm sure as you see in gymnastics, people let go of the bar and catch it again. And like the tiniest change in your tap and understanding just the physics behind it really makes a difference. So it's actually a really cool event. That was probably one of my favorites growing up. And uh, like the uniqueness that you can put on your routines as you get older is really cool. It's not always the strongest gymnast that was best on bars, more just the ones that let themselves swing and really understand the technique. So it was more of a technical event. Floor is fun because you can put on a performance. You get to kind of show your character and do the skills. It's bouncy. It's fun. It was definitely my favorite. Um, Next to bars, and then I don't know. I was never good at vault.
Yeah. And I think
I
yeah,
was never good at vault.
I mean that's got to be hard to do too. But I think on the floor you scored like a 9.89 or something like that. Was like your high score.
Yeah, 985, 987.5.
That's like close to being perfect.
Yeah, the name of the
Like
game. That is the name
like
of the game.
yeah, how many young women you score that high in anything? Is that like a average score? Or is that just like close to the top? Like very few girls get that high.
No, in college, you absolutely get that high. I mean, the lineups fill from 995s all the way to 99 being the lowest and or 98
Okay.
being the lowest. So it does range. I mean, in gymnastics leading to that, like USAG, when you compete, you're like within the 9 range if you're doing really well, but they take a
Okay.
lot more deductions. It's a lot stricter. In college, you do end up around there. And again, it's kind of like you trained your whole life to be perfect. So that's where you
Yeah.
end up.
Okay. So your recruiting process, it's almost like you recruited yourself. You went up to watch UNH and they wanted you to go there, but you saw them, compete against Rutgers. You're like, I want to go there instead.
Yeah, and again, the recruitment process is extremely competitive, and if the school doesn't have money, unfortunately, you do lose out on that. But I think there's some crazy statistic that 7% of high school athletes go on to college to compete, which, when you realize you're that unique, it doesn't seem like it then, but looking back, it's an extreme like privilege and
Yeah.
honor to represent a school. So I think even walking on is extremely admirable. And again, like any athlete that wants to go on to college to play and to compete at their sport is really admirable as well, no matter
Yeah.
the level.
Can you talk about that? That you gave up a full scholarship to walk on. Most kids aren't going to do that. What gave you the courage, and how did your parents feel about that? And hey, hey, mom, dad, a freebie turns into you got to pay.
Yeah, well, they weren't so happy, but I mean, Rutgers was a lot closer, which, I did want to be closer to home. But I think that I was sure if I worked hard enough that I would earn my scholarship. And sometimes you do have to take the risk in betting on yourself to better yourself. And if you can surround yourself with people that are at a higher level than you, usually you become able to fulfill your potential. And, if you surround yourself with people that are equal to you or lesser, you might not ever get to what you're capable of. And I felt like
Right.
this was the push that I needed and wanted at the time.
It's awesome. So let's go back to that moment. Now, did the coach call you into the office and say, "Hey, we're going to give you a full ride now"? Like, how did that go down?
Yeah, so I did get a call like in the middle of a random day, and I actually thought I was in trouble because he's like, "Hey, can you come down to the office?" And my sophomore year is the one that I actually got surgery, so I didn't really compete. Again, I was still in the gym and being active, but I didn't compete that year. So when I got the call, I'm like, "Oh my God!" I'm like running back everything in my head. Did I get in trouble? What did I do? I'm like, did I miss signing a paper? Did I wear the wrong sock to practice? All the little things that matter that you don't see behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And when I got there, it was like my three coaches in there, and um, yeah, they did. He's like, "So how do you think things are going?" And I'm like, "Hmm,
Hmm.
pretty good, I guess." And he told me that my passion for the sport is undeniable, and that I continue to sacrifice a lot and show what the sport means to me. And then he said, "Get over here and sign your scholarship papers." And I was crying. And then I got to call my parents, and it was like extremely exciting. It's definitely a big deal. Again, you like work all your life for those moments, and it was really cool. And I knew that I worked hard enough to get there. So it was definitely a really exciting moment for me.
How did your parents handle that phone call?
Oh, they were really excited too. I mean, like that's like, they know how much I cared and
Yeah.
how hard I worked. But again, I think something that I knew that I was taking on was I could be a walk on for all 4 years, and that was okay to me. Like I wanted to fulfill my potential. I wanted
Yeah.
to be at Rutgers like being the best student athlete I could be, and that moment might never have came. It did, and it was the biggest blessing in my life still till this day. However, you in betting on yourself you can lose, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't have changed anything that I did. I still worked really hard, and I still really loved the sport, and I was extremely passionate about myself, about my teammates, and everything that I did and was able to do.
So how did your teammates handle that? They must have been like jacked up.
Yeah, they were extremely excited as well. You know, Gymnastics is a really individual sport, but I think coming together as a team really mattered, and a lot of us cared about one another, which was nice.
That's awesome. Nothing like getting that money. Right?
Yeah.
Show me the money. So how about, being a gymnast, it's a tough sport. You got to worry about your weight, right? They always say, hey, how heavy are you getting? You got to fit into the uniforms, you got to work out, you got to do all this crazy stuff. But what did you learn from all of that, that helped propel you, post athletics, your athletic career? How did that propel you into what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I think being a student athlete is extremely challenging on a lot of levels. I think that there's a lot that matters to be successful at it. I mean, we were training from 7 a.m. till 12:30. Then we had lift, and we would go to a 12:40 class until the afternoon. And some of my late classes are 7:40 till 10 at night. So
Hmm.
you don't really ever get a switch off being a student athlete, and that's for 4 years straight. I do think a lot of successful student athletes pay attention to the details outside of the gym or outside of like the corral of being the student athlete. You know, there was so much help that we were given, so many resources that we were designated to do and to take the opportunity in. You know, it's what you're doing in your dorm or what you're doing after the lights are out or when no one's watching. And I think, again, like you said, you know, eating and going out and partying and giving into the pressure of school and, you know, being just a regular student and or being a student athlete as well. I think it takes a toll. And I think, you know, you can watch some of your teammates go out and party and still perform their best. And that might not be you. And I think figuring out kind of your path and the pressures and how you give into them, being outside of, especially outside of the gym, I mean for me, but any athlete outside of that, like I said, that little corral that gives you the
Yeah.
guidance, that's what's really important. And it's kind of the same in a career. You know, there's plenty of extra details. And even in ConMed, there's plenty of resources that I can use and outlets that I can take in being better and how I study my products and how I prepare and being ready to show up to the OR and talk to surgeons every day is something that makes me a better rep and a better sales professional. And I do take pride in doing so. But again, it's, you know, a lot of discipline from the early mornings, the late nights, the difference in the OR, and again, what I'm doing outside to prepare myself and being there. And it's kind of cool in med device. There's so many outlets I could turn to in selling, and what doesn't work and what works is up to me. So it's, you know, going home or taking the drive home to think about, okay, well, that didn't work today, but what's a different pitch that I can give him that might be more attractive to that surgeon specifically? And I think, again, those little things is extremely important.
You just took the athletic world and brought it with you.
Yeah, which I think you have to do. Um, Being an athlete at the highest level, again, is such a privilege, but outside of that athlete world and that student athlete mentality, you can get lost. And I think it happens fast. I mean, the world gives you all these opportunities. And again, when you're at college, you're just a student athlete and you follow that path. And again, you have guidance in doing so, and you're surrounded by other student athletes, not even on your team, but, you know, we had study hall with lacrosse and soccer and, you know, baseball and all these other athletes that followed that same exact school, sport,
Yep.
school, sport. Even at outside, we would live with our athletes, whether
Yep.
the same sport or different. So you didn't really know anything else until then you get into the real world again and you're like, okay, so how can I use these skills? And you still have that drive, you still have that compassion. It's like, what now can I use with this competitive driven, passionate self and make myself better in the work life world. So it's definitely scary.
Yeah. So you're pretty intense.
Yeah, I've heard
I'm
that a
sure
lot.
you hear that a lot, right?
I do
So,
hear that a lot.
and it sounds like you decided to throw yourself to the wolves as a freshman. You know, you went from full scholarship, UNH, you probably went up there like a celebrity, to Rutgers, no money, figure it out, earn it on your own, and good luck, right? So, what advice can you give to the young girls today that are coming out of high school? They want to be you, they want to do what you've done. What advice can you give them to help prepare them to maybe avoid something you maybe should have avoided or shouldn't have done on the way? Anything?
um I guess I would inspire high school athletes, gymnastics or not, to continue their path. If they've spent and designated so much time into a sport that they loved and they've created who they are through practicing that sport, I think that they should pursue it at the college level if they can. And if not, no matter the level, like there's always intramural sports that you can be a part of. And, you know, I think again, being an athlete in college, no matter what that looks like in the journey you're taking, I think it's really important. You learn a lot of teamwork, a lot of cooperative behaviors with others. You know, you're challenging yourself to study and get a degree and also do a sport and, you know, designate some time out of the life that college brings you into a sport. So I think it's really important, I would say, if you love your sport, to do it in college. There's nothing
Good.
better than representing your school, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a euphoric feeling, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. So you mentioned before injury, right? What kind of injuries have you dealt with, and how did you handle that from a physicality side, but then also from a mental side? Because when you're an athlete and you're not allowed to be out there, and you see your teammates out there, that plays havoc on your mind.
Yeah, I mean, injury is a part of every sport. And it's something that you have to embrace overcoming. I do think it's important to embrace that challenge because, again, like you said, every athlete is so used to being in there and at least training every day. And when that's taken away from you, and again, you're forced to stand on the sideline, I do think it helps build character. And I do feel like that a lot actually in life. Again, in any sales industry, there's high highs and low lows, but it does keep me in the game. And like those moments aren't forever, and it's important to grow through those hard times. And when you are on the sideline, or when I walk into an OR and I'm not getting the result that I thought I was going to, and I think embracing the suffer is helpful to being successful. So I do think it's a challenge to be on the sideline, and mentally it is hard and it's gruesome, and you watch everyone do what you're capable of doing, what you want to do, and you're forced to stand there and to still be a part. And I think growing and helping your teammates or learning how to be on the sideline and still be valuable is really important.
Mm. That's a challenge a lot of athletes have, Jenna, is when they're out with an injury, it's they don't how it's how do they contribute back even if they're injured? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just sitting there cheering on your teammates, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I think making yourself valuable in any circumstance and in any situation in any room, I think that's where the character is built, and it's not always when you're winning. It's also when you're losing. It's also when you can't do what you want. It's also when the results aren't going your way. So again, in life, I do believe that you know embracing the suffer kind of matters.
Now you're saying it nicely, embracing the suffer. It's supposed to say embrace the suck,
Yeah,
right?
embrace the suck. That's for sure. You don't have an
It's
option, so you're just gonna sit here and fail. But how can you be valuable when
yeah.
times are tough? And again, that helps you grow because life is never easy, and there's chaos in life every day, whether it be at work or at home. And I do think that how are you valuable in every room that you walk into? And it's kind of the same when you're taking out your student athlete. I'm Jenna the gymnast, and now I can't do gymnastics. How am I still valuable to others around me? How can I still
Mhm.
create value for myself and for those that I share these moments with? So it was definitely, I mean, I just had wrist surgery, which I know it sounds crazy, but it's like one of the smaller injuries in gymnastics. I was super blessed. With a better surgery than most. I mean, there's torn ACLs, shoulder surgery. All us gymnasts are pretty beat up still till this day, but I do think that it's helped me grow as a person.
I mean, injuries, it's just part of sports. Everybody gets something,
Yeah.
something along the way. So how about from the competition side? Sometimes competition brings out the best in you, and like makes you like super duper everything, and sometimes it makes you brings out the worst in you. Can you talk about, competition and how you handled it during when the team was like winning and having a good time? Or how about when the team wasn't doing so well? Like how did you handle that mentally?
Yeah. So, um, gymnastics is extremely intense in the realm that we all are there training for events, and top six go up on every event. And then there's two alternates and possibly an exhibition. So to see your name on the lineup, um, is really exciting, but it's a lot of pressure. You mess up one time, you're out of lineup most
Mm,
times. And we all compete to be better than one another. If we want to win it as a team, it's an individual sport where if you're going up and you're getting a 995 and I'm only going to get a 985, then you deserve that spot over me because as a team we want to win, and it's just I have to work harder. So I think it's the way that you set your mind and the way that you handle that pressure. Gymnastics again is we're built to be perfect. We're under a microscope. We're being judged on every little thing that we do, and including the way that we carry ourselves, and that all matters. So I think the competitive environment is really exciting, and it's so fun to compete. And again, like you said, it's easy to be excited and happy when you're doing well.
yeah.
There are moments where we watch our teammate go up and we could win this meet, but then she falls, and it's like, okay, um, how can we carry ourselves as a team to be better doing during these moments, and who can step up behind her to hit their routine and still give us a chance, or even just again, learn how we can be better, or what mistakes did she made that maybe she needed a different correction to be better.
You just said it, in gymnastics, you're measured on perfection.
Yeah, from a young age.
Yeah. Like, is there any other sport that does that? I don't think so. You just win or lose as a team, or you win a score. But you guys are judged on, well, 10 is perfect.
Yeah. I mean, that's like kind of what's cool in the transition to boxing too, is like gymnastics, you train to be perfect. In boxing, kickboxing, you train to be smart. It's like, how can I get my opponent to play my game and do what I'm best at? Like put them in a circumstance where I could be better. Gymnastics, you just train to be perfect. It was like every detail, every small little mistake mattered. Paying attention to detail mattered. The way you showed up, carried yourself mattered. In boxing, I mean, you're there with someone with a competitive mindset and drive to almost kill one another. And it's how can I be smarter in the moments that it's happening? You train skills that if this happens, I could do this. So it's very different, but it's actually like been a pretty cool transition. Again, both pay close attention to detail. So I think that's helped me make corrections and, you know, pulling my hands back to my face faster and, avoiding getting knocked out. But it's definitely both of them extremely competitive and individual for sure. The discipline is there in both sports.
So all athletes have this challenge of transitioning out of the game or the sport. So was boxing, did that help you transition from gymnastics to the real world to find something to keep the competitive drive going?
I do think boxing helped me, but it's kind of a little bit later out of college that I decided I wanted to be competitive in boxing. I like always worked out of college. It's kind of what us athletes do. Again, I wasn't training 5 hours a day like I was used to in college, but I would work out and I worked a normal 9 to 5 job at the time. And I think that's kind of where I got lost. It just wasn't normal to me. Again, you're so guided in this student athlete life around student athletes with the same mindset and those that unspoken, but you get it. You just understood what was going on because we all lived that same life. Even if
Right.
it wasn't the same sport, it was still the same schedule, the same life, the same, I just failed this test because sports came first. And, it is interesting. You go to college and like you're living your dream as an athlete in college. And,
Right.
you knew people as, oh, this is Todd and he played soccer. And you knew them as that. And it was kind of your identity. And then you walk out of college and it's like, whoa, who am I now?
Right.
And it's kind of for most athletes, their athletic career ends at the end of college. I mean, like,
Yeah.
unless you're going to go pro or go to the Olympics, you kind of stop doing your sport, unless like there's some recreational that you can do, but not gymnastics for the most
Right.
part.
Right.
Um, I do think that after working the 9 to 5 and trying to figure it out, I did get more into like, okay, what am I looking for? What am I striving for? And what can I grow in? And boxing was a sport I kind of went from the highest level of expectation in gymnastics to then the lowest level of boxing. Because when you truly want to learn to box, you're not just like hitting things, you really do. You start on the line and you learn a step jab for months before you can even do another punch, another combo. So it did humble me a lot, but it gave me a skill that I was able to train at and get better at every day, and I think that that's what was so addictive to me. And similarly in work, when I decided I wanted to be a pharma or med device rep, um, the environment is extremely competitive, and I go into the OR every day with surgeons that do use my product, but it could be tomorrow that if I don't show up, another product is presented to them, and it might have a better clinical benefit on the patient. Now, bias or not, I know my products benefit patients. However, there are products, like I said, that might just be cost effective, or someone might come in with
Something new.
yeah, something new or a better solution
Yeah.
that impacts the nurses may be better, or it's more feasible for their workflow. And, then it's like, okay, how can I get around this, or how can I keep my business there? Um, it's definitely helped me to find myself, I think, because it's like all I've known my whole life. So
Yeah.
sticking with a competitive environment, and I know I speak for me, my colleagues, and most people that are training MMA or boxing, we all surround ourselves with this intense drive, this, want to be better. How can we be better? Take the risks in being successful. And it's really cool when you do surround yourself with similar minded people, maybe not gymnasts anymore, but still in a similar environment where it helps me to grow, it helps me to be successful, and it's really brought me a lot of like who I am back.
Yeah. Well, you become the average of the people you hang around, right?
I'd like to think so, yeah.
Yeah. So you just mentioned, who you are, and we talk about identity. Some athletes, Jenna, can handle the transition from the athletic world to the, lack of better words, non-athletic world. But some have their identity taken away and they can't make that transition. So it sounds like you've made a pretty good transition from athletics, competitive in school, to you just carry it forward into your career and you're just doing the same thing. You're just not jumping up and down doing crazy stuff like you were before. But you're boxing now.
Yeah, I actually, this sounds extremely blunt and kind of harsh, but I think you have to force yourself to figure it out. Every one of us did that sport our whole life, and that's
Yeah.
how we got to the D1 Big Ten level. You walk out of college, it's like, okay, what's next? And we all feel that way. We all felt lost. We all feel lost. And it doesn't just leave when you maybe find another community, it stays with you because, for so long you were defined by almost a sport or the judges or your teammates or your coaches. And, you walk out of college and it's all gone. And not only the college student athlete life, but even like I said, I was 6, 7, 8 years old, and I watched my friends play on the playground, and I had to go to practice. And so I've known that my whole life. So I definitely was lost out of college, but you have to force yourself to figure it out. You have to force yourself to find a new identity. And it does, it comes with trial and error. I mean, like I said, like I worked at a healthcare communication company, and that's where I found that I loved healthcare, but the 9 to 5 office job just wasn't for me. I wanted more, and I wanted to directly impact patient life, and I found a way to do so. And I have no business, you know, let me watch live surgery. I didn't study anything medical, but I fought for the job that I thought that I would be able to excel and be my best self at. And it was a job that I fought for. And I was willing to take call. I was willing to move. I was willing to make all these changes in my life because I knew that this was a career that I wanted to pursue. And it's given me a lot back. In who I am. And, when you find that character and you find that self, maybe my little gymnast self in me, but it helps me to be a better sales professional every day. And even in boxing, it helps me take boxing from the bottom up. I don't just do it so recreationally, but I did. I took a fight and was able to do it at a competitive level as well. So I think that a lot aligns in your life. And if you force yourself to figure it out post college, you'll get what you want out of it.
Oh my God, yeah. So when's the next fight?
I know. The common question. I fought one time. I'm going out on a 1-0
Well,
record.
there's got to be a first to everything. There's always a day one. So
Maybe this
so
is the
when's fight
interview
two?
that maybe this is the interview that'll bring me back. I don't know. We'll see. Again, it's like really demanding with work to take a fight camp. Like a fight camp's 8 weeks before the fight, and you basically have to put your mindset in like kill mode, which does help work for sure. But I do have an expansion territory, so I'm driving a significant amount per day. So it makes it hard to like double train and do all that I need, but it's not impossible. So maybe it's the next challenge I'll take on.
We'll be looking forward to it, right?
Thanks.
So talk about teamwork. Talk about school team transition to work team and the similarity there.
So I actually have like a direct correlation. Gymnastics, again, we're a bunch of individuals and we come together to be great. And with Med Device, I have my own territory and I have a team of others that have their own territory. Our money doesn't coincide, but what we do does. So we come together again to be great and to win as a team. But individually, it's how we could be better. It's how we run our territory as managers. So it's been a pretty cool transition in that realm. Again, and teamwork does matter. We do all come together, and someone might experience something with a different product with a specific surgeon that I've never experienced before. So we all use each other, lean on one another, just as it was similar in college.
That's awesome. So that competitive world is still heavy for you. It's who's going to sell the most, who's going to be at the top of the list, right? It's just like who's going to get that perfect score.
Yeah, I was rep of the year in 2022. Um, so
That's
that was
great.
like one of my best professional moments. Yeah.
So when's that happening again?
Yeah, I know that. I know. Actually, my manager was rep of the year multiple times, so striving to be that. But it was definitely interesting. I started med device during the COVID year, so I wasn't really able to be in the hospitals as much as I needed and or wanted, especially as a new rep. That was another thing I had to force myself to figure out, because it's like, okay, well, what do we do when we're not in the OR and my hospitals don't know me? So it was a challenge. So I started in 2020. 2021, I really was able to start getting back into the hospitals, but the budget mattered since COVID took a hit.
Yep.
Um, but that's like kind of where I learned to be a sales professional in my own way. And, sales is different for everyone, especially when you're working in an operating room. It's an extremely humbling job. There's a patient getting live surgery in front of me every day. And it's how, again, I can create value for the staff, for the surgeon, be a light in the room as well. And I think that 2021, I learned how to play the game. I learned how to lose and to figure it
Mm,
out in different ways. It wasn't always the way I thought was going to work, but it was about asking questions and learning how, again, I can create that value with the products and services that I offered. 2022, that's when I was rep of the year. So by that time, again, 2020, I was stuck. 2021, I figured out how to play the game. And 2022, I
you
implemented
won.
it and I won. Yeah.
Beautiful. So how do you go into the operating room and look at all that blood?
It's actually interesting. When I was in my interview process before COVID, they did bring you in the OR to, I guess, learn, like, see how you were going to react. It was actually part of my interview process. And when I was there, I was like, wow, I'm 23 years old. I'm out of college. What a better way to learn than to be here. And some days it does get to you. Others, I mean, it's like the norm. Um,
But what kind of surgeries are you watching?
all of them. So hip surgeries, total
Oh,
knee, hysterectomies, prostatectomies, um, breast reconstruction, plastics, anything that you could think of, C-sections. I've pretty much seen it all, amputations. And again, it's a luxury. I get to make a difference. I get to be in the OR, and it humbles me every day. I mean, what a better perspective than, like, no matter what I have going on, life kind of pauses when I walk into the OR and create value for others who, that's their daily life. And it's gruesome. It's hard. Most times people are in there getting surgery for a specific reason. It's not because they want to, it's because they need to. And that's what gives me a really good perspective in life.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'd be passing out,
A
you
lot
know?
of people say that.
Yeah. Oh my God. So, what advice can you give the athletes today? Let's say you had a chance to get in front of the Rutgers gymnastics team, the seniors, and what advice can you give them to help prepare them for what's next now? Because hey, they're done, right? They're graduating like this week or last week. It's time to get out there and make things happen. What advice can you give them about the transition out of sports, out of college, into the real world?
My advice would be to keep the identity, keep the drive, keep the passion, just change it to something that they can find passion in post gymnastics or post college sports. Um, D1 athletics gives you an incredible platform into work, into careers, into life post gymnastics. And I think that using that platform to better you, I mean, a lot of companies are willing to take a risk on you because you've already done the hardest thing out there. You've lived a life full of sports and education, and you've gotten a degree under extreme pressure, under the highest competitive level, under the most expectation desired of you, and now you're about to take on a job. I mean, it doesn't always seem easy. Sales is pretty hard, but I think knowing that you had the platform and that you can grow and use that platform to make you better, along with keeping the identity that you've had there, like, there's no reason to lose that drive, there's no reason to lose that passion. Just find it in something else and you will be successful.
So, how can they use that platform? Can you give them some advice on like how can they find that next job? Is it tap someone on the shoulder? How do you find it?
I think using a network, actually, I think that the more, there's plenty of resources, again, on LinkedIn, on Indeed, on what the, you know, on the people, the teammates, even again the alum that might come into contact with them, I think you should network. I think you should talk to people. I never would have thought that I wanted to be in med device, but when once I learned a little bit more about it, I was like, wow, I can definitely thrive here, and it's what I want to do my whole life. No matter what's to come next, I want to stay in the med device industry. But I think for athletes post college, I think it's important to use the networks that are given to you and to talk, to learn. Okay, maybe this will interest me, maybe not, but you have to try. You have to put yourself out there. You have to know that you've done the hardest part, and that platform will make your work life balance, your career, to help you be successful. So I think that I would encourage them to keep the drive.
All right. So what's next for you? I mean, you're still a young woman. You got so many years in front of you professionally. You got your career, you got boxing, you got all kinds of stuff. What's it looking like for you 3, 4, 5 years from now?
I love med device, so I want to continue to pursue med device on all levels. But I think within myself, I want to just become the best sales professional I can be, and not just in healthcare and the med device industry, but maybe beyond that. I want to be able to sell in any industry and truly learn like how to be curious about people and the services that are out there and how it can create value in someone's life. So, hopefully, to be the best sales professional I can be. Maybe one day an entrepreneur, I don't know, maybe open a business or something. But for now, I definitely would want to push myself in being the best sales professional, to stay genuinely curious about everything there is out there and to make myself better.
That's awesome. Well, you're well on your way,
Thank you.
and you know, all the athletes that I've been talking to have the similar drive. It's they want to be the best. They wake up every day. How do I get better? How do I get better? And it's just amazing to see, especially I think you're like the 19th Rutgers athlete I've interviewed. And you all come with the same intensity. It's like, geez, no wonder, you guys are all so successful at what you're doing right out of school, which is great. So, Jen, is there anything I haven't asked you yet that you think we should touch on before we wrap it up?
I appreciate you having me on. It's really cool to, touch base and think back to the athlete life. So just a special thank you to you. I appreciate all that you do. And I do think as an athlete, I would appreciate a platform like this, especially because, like you said, after doing a sport your whole life, then being a student athlete, where to turn is really scary. And I feel like we all go into college being the most excited, happy athlete we could be because that was our dream. And then, you hit junior year and you're extremely unsure of what's next and what's to come. And finding a job is scary. And even, you might find one job, two jobs, three jobs, and they might not be what you're looking for.
Right.
And as you just mentioned, all us athletes are looking for that drive, looking for that how we could be better, looking for that want, that need, that risk that we could take to grow. And so I think it's extremely important to have this platform. So thank you for having me on.
Well, thanks for being on. I mean, great story, and I can't wait for this to go up on the system for people to hear it because there's a lot of 6-year-olds, 8-year-old young women that are out there in the gymnastics world who want to hear what the path is like, and your path is nothing but success, which is great to see.
I
So,
appreciate it. Thank you.
so let us know when your next fight is because we want to be able to maybe tune in and watch.
I'll keep you posted, definitely. Thank you so much.